We rise again in the waves out on the ocean, and then we rise again. When the light goes dark with the forces of creation in a stormy sky, we look to reincarnation to explain our lives, as if a child could tell us why. That as sure as the sunrise, sure as the seas, sure as the wind in the trees, we rise again in the faces of our children. We rise again in the voices of our song. We rise again in the waves out on the ocean, and then we rise again. We rise again in the faces of our children. We rise again in the voices of our song. We rise again in the waves out on the ocean, and then we rise again.
All right. Nice. Yeah. Little cloud cover too. So nice, Glenna. Thank you.
Thank you. Came up short, one reader. So I'm going to read it. Let me shed my guitar here. Henry Scott Holland. Death is nothing at all. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I've only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you. And the old life that we lived so fondly together is untouched, unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference in your tone. Wear no forced solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is same as it ever was. There is absolute and unbroken continuity. What is death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I'm out of sight? I am but waiting for you for an interval somewhere near, just around the corner. All is well. Nothing is hurt. Nothing is lost. One brief moment, and all will be as it was before. How we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again. I don't know, you want to join in on this, Pat?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
I think I have it memorized.
Oh yeah. Well, you can.
I'll listen to you.
You can. Well, it's in.
Oh, that's right.
It's
Yes,
in
it is. I see it.
There's the words right there. So
Okay.
we'll just throw this into the middle. I'm expecting the three of us. So we, Holly, Pat, and I, and Edson, we're all part of the Calvary Church Episcopal Church Choir in Summit, New Jersey, for eons.
Under
So-
Howard Vogel, God rest
Right,
his soul.
Howard Vogel was the organist and choir master. And so, anyway, we should be able to do a good rendition of this. It's Eternal Father, God Strong to Save, the British Navy hymn, and also largely used for those. Oh, we got everybody in now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Hey!
Yay.
You need the words, Ed?
I think we've all got
I
it.
think
Yeah.
we've all
All right.
And you heard it at John McKee's
Okay.
funeral.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Does that sound like a good
A
tune?
little higher.
A little higher. We'll take your advice. You're the pro.
For me.
Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm hath bound the restless way, who It's the mighty ocean deep, its own appointed limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea. Thanks to Nick and Doug for the antiphony. So thank you very
Yes.
much. I'm going to read a benediction, and then Nancy Kelly has some prepared remarks that she is going to read for us, and then we're going to have Peter wind it up for us. That's really not appropriate for, I guess, a celebration of life. It is appropriate for it. So. Almighty Creator of the universe, the gracious inspiration for Glenna's gardens and her love of the sea, accept her spirit and her physical essence into your eternal care and make her part of your never-ending creation and renewal. In the name of all that is holy and full of grace, may she dwell in the company of saints and angels forever. Amen. Okay, amen. Okay, Nancy.
I like how the wind came up and the clouds came over, and it's perfect.
That's right, she's speaking.
That's right.
Man, is this running?
I think so. Before I start the remarks, just as we were 10 minutes out of the house, I said to Bruce, "Oh, why didn't I take a picture of the heart with the saying on it that, can everybody hear me okay? That Glenna gave me about 5 years ago when we moved to our new place in Connecticut from Chicago." So I get online, I start looking at Google, small ceramic heart with friendship saying, and up it came. So I thought, it was meant to be. So I had this little heart. I put it on a tray on my counter, and every time we'd take a beach walk, we would pick up a stone that looked like a heart, and we would add to it. And that was 5 years ago, and I have a mound. And every once in a while, I'd take a picture and send it to Glenna, because we couldn't see each other in the last year or so. So I couldn't even, usually I could show it in person when they'd come through. So I'll read you what it said. It said, "Life's truest happiness is found in the friendships we make along the way." So my Chicago cohorts from yoga are here. They'll recognize some of these stories. The first time I met Glenna, I was leaving my building in Chicago for a Wednesday morning yoga class that I had been taking for about 10 years. There was a base group of about 8 of us, and others would come, float in and out of class, leave for a year or two and come back, but I think I pretty much knew everyone in that class. As I walked out of the lobby, I noticed another woman with a yoga mat in her arms and figured she was probably going to a class at one of the fancier Lincoln Park studios. However, as I started walking the 4 blocks to my less than fancy Old Town facility, which also doubled as a kid's karate space, the attractive woman with her mat seemed to be following me. When I turned around, she laughed and said, "I'm not stalking you. I'm going to a yoga class." I said, "I am too," at the Old Town Triangle. And she said, "I am too," and that she was new to class and had just started. We started talking and never stopped. By the time we reached the door to class, we pretty much knew each other's life stories. Glenna brought such a great new energy into that class that it made us all extra motivated to not miss a Wednesday morning so we could hear her latest news. What new 4 books she had read that week, her volunteer work at the park, the latest plans for their new house, and what her kids were up to. She also introduced us to an insider's view of the beauty and magic of Chris and Glenna's Cape Cod. We all made it a must to go after class to La Fournette, our local French bakery, to continue the conversations. Sometimes we sat for hours. We had to leave when our butts started to hurt. But the huge, tasty croissants, sadly, canceled out any benefit gained from any calories we might have burned during the yoga. And so began the yoga faction of her Chicago gang, as she called us. Good fortune brought us even closer after the Outwinds moved full-time back to the Cape, and Bruce and I moved closer to my family in Connecticut. We had many fun, short road trips, or as we called them, meetups. Glenna and Chris would research the perfect place to meet between our 2 homes. Glenna would meticulously Google where to find the best grilled cheese for me, what restaurants would have a fireplace or a pretty view or something special to see. Sometimes we'd say over, and sometimes it would just be a day trip. They also hosted us on the Cape, treating us to delicious lobster rolls at the Sedgwick Harbor Cafe. As Chicagoans, we realized we had never had a real lobster roll. And of course, Glenna made sure they had a grilled cheese for me. Must have killed her to see me eat a grilled cheese when that lobster was sitting there, but Bruce made up for it. We also enjoyed a delicious sunset dinner at the Fisherman's View after we walked their usual 50,000 steps that day, touring the beaches of Cape Cod. Glenna was always a little amazed at my lack of domestic skills. She was my mentor for cooking, sewing, and gardening. Okay, not the sewing, and not the gardening, or even the cooking. But she tried her best, sharing recipes and her kitchen skills, but alas, we decided to leave the cooking to her. My favorite Glenna story, though, took place not that long ago. She always remembered my October birthday. 2 years ago, she and Chris happened to be traveling through Connecticut that weekend, and she brought me a beautiful and treasured glass-blown pumpkin figurine from the Sandwich Glass Museum, along with, of course, local treats from Cape Cod. She knew how much I loved it, so last October, 2020, when we hadn't seen each other and things were tough, she sent me a beautiful blue and white glass vase from the same museum, and she added some pretty orange silk flowers. I was so touched by her thoughtfulness that I quickly took a picture of it on my table next to the pumpkin and texted it to her with a thank you. She immediately wrote back with a note saying she was glad it arrived safely. But from the picture, she noted it would be best if I took a pair of standard scissors and snipped the bottom of the flower stem to balance the aesthetics. Pure Glenna. We laughed together, we cried together. The day that Glenna walked into that class, joining Jane and Mary Helen and Becky and I and our beloved teacher Nancy, all our lives were changed. A phrase that comes to mind that sums up how we feel is, she left us better than she found us. We loved Glenna, we love you, Chris. Thank you for getting us here today all together to talk about how much we love her and we love you. And it's so wonderful to meet all the people I've heard about over the years. She loved you all and she loved this place. And she's here and here in the garden and with all of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, other than maybe me, the person that knew Glenna the best is her brother Peter. So, Peter King.
Thank you, everybody, for coming from far and close to mourn Glenna's death and to celebrate her life. Glenna was so beautiful, and that beauty reflected out into almost everything she did, whether in the garden or the table, the kitchen. Glenna and Chris had numerous houses that they found and improved in great ways. The first one was in Brewster, I think. Isn't that right, Chris?
Yes. Yeah.
That was my first carpentry job. I think there's a picture somewhere, but we tore the roof off the old barn.
Yep.
And I've been swinging a hammer ever since, but not too much. I would like to thank Chris for all the effort he put in to the last 4 years with Glenna. He was tireless, so many times up to Boston. He was just such a trooper as we tried to help Glenna get through all this. And it was, we were kind of fooled because Glenna just kept going on another year and another year. And she'd be going downhill and we'd get, Dr. Sands would have a new drug to try and she'd be back up, and she went from not being able to go up and down the stairs to charging across the beach and whatever. And when she finally did slip away, it was such a surprise. I was very surprised. It was a tough day. I was the third in the family of three. Lindy was 5 years older than me, and Glenna was 7 years older. So I don't have a lot of memories, as a child. And when I guess I'll be 11 years old when Glenna went out of the house. But later she came back to be very important in my life. She was a protector of me and my coach. She helped me with so many projects, things that I started with that I wasn't pushing too hard, and Glenna would come roaring through and get things going. She's very instrumental in launching my tiny house career. She was a lot more excited about the little movie that was made about me than I was. And I remember she made a website, and I was like, whatever. And I didn't have much skill with a computer at the time, so we had a system. Every time someone would contact the website,